Hello and welcome, my brothers and sisters around the world. Yours truly, Chris B. Motep here with another show, another piece, another video. Before I go on, I'd like you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just click the red link down the bottom where it says subscribe and just click on that. Share all of our videos, leave your comments down below and like them, of course, because it helps the algorithm and it helps our, videos to become more watched, and we attract more views that way, and of course we get more subscribers. Thank you for your subscriptions, by the way. I must say thank you so much, but we want to build and grow even some more. I'm here today to pay tribute to the late and great Linford Hux Brown. We sadly lost on the 18th of June this year, 2020. It's been, as I said many times, and other people have said it, it's been a really wretched year. Possibly the worst year in human history for over 100 years. It's been really bad. We've lost a lot of people through deaths of coronavirus and various other underlying illnesses brought on, of course, by the coronavirus. And it's so sad of me to report that we lost him many months ago. And somebody had told me about it, and I was so busy with other things at the time. So I said, down the line, I'm definitely going to do a tribute to him. So I use this video as my tribute to the late great guitarist from Jamaica, Hux Brown. Hux Brown was born in Port Antonio on the 4th of December 1944, and he moved up to Kingston at a young age, and he became a part of the Soul Brothers band at Studio One. The Soul Brothers really morphed into the Soul Brothers from the Scatolites, which demised after Don Drummond's death, or Don Drummond's demise. He died in 68, but he demised in 65. And so the Scatolites merged into two bands: the in-house band at Studio One called the Soul Brothers, and another band called the Supersonics, which, of course, ironically, Hux Brown was also a part of, because he would hop from one to the other, because musicians had to do this in those times, because if they moved around, the chances are they'll make more money. And sometimes if they were very good, like Hux Brown was one of the very best guitarists at the time, they'll be in demand to play in various sessions and in various bands. But he also formed the Vikings. They used to back the Maytals. Then, of course, we're going to be known as Toots and the Maytals, but at that time they were known as simply just the Maytals, of Tits Hibbett, Raleigh Gordon and Jerry Mathis. And he was there as a guitarist in the Vikings band. They used to back Toots and the Maytals when they toured around Jamaica, and even when they came to England and toured in the 60s, the Vikings were backing them. Because I remember one of my cousins had told me that he went to see them when they came to England in the early days, and the Vikings were backing them at that time. And so the death hasn't yet been reported as to what cause, but I suspect it's probably a heart attack, because according to the great Hux Brown's wife, Bobby, she said he left the house the morning of the 18th, which is a Thursday, to go and get some items, and then he never returned, and apparently they found him dead in a parking lot in this particular place that he went to purchase some items. And the coroner phoned immediately Hux Brown's wife of 42 years, Bobby, and told her that her husband had passed away and so on. And so it's such a sad loss. According to Bobby, she said that Hux liked to really help a lot of people. He was one of those guys who really liked to help people, and he never liked to see you without anything. If you lacked something, you were without something, he would always like to help, whether it be financial or materially or just emotionally. He was very good and in tune with people. He loved to really be there for people. And so he played on some great numbers, Hux Brown. He played on the Toots and the Maytals classic Pressure Drop, as well as the only crossover hit Monkey Man in 1970. He also worked for many of the producers around at that time: Coxsone Dodd, Drew Creed. He worked for Scratch Perry, Lee Scratch Perry, Bunny Lee, Derek Harriott. In actual fact, Derek Harriott said that without Hux Brown on your rhythm section, you don't have a rhythm section at all. And without Hux Brown on your sessions in the studio, you don't have a session at all. That's how important that this man was in regards to the whole creation of, early Jamaican music. He really started in the rocksteady era, going into rocksteady era, where the Supersonics were the ones who were backing and leading that particular movement. But in actual fact, he was one of the creators of the new reggae sound, which came into the scene in 1968, because he was part of the he was part of the Dynamites band, which, of course, was Clancy Eccles is in house band, and the Dynamites were one of the first bands that they said created reggae. Also, Bunny Lee's All Stars, he was a part of that band as well, which they said that was one of the first times that a particular band played on a reggae number. So it's debatable, but we're saying that Hux Brown was one of the creators of reggae alongside Jackie Jackson, the bass player, and also Lynn Tate, yet another guitarist from Trinidad. So he's one of the guys, right, really, because they say that, yes, he was one of the guys, right, you know, initiated reggae and created reggae with his guitar notes and his guitar riff, as well as Jackie Jackson on bass, and at Studio One, the other great Jackie, this time Jackie Me Too, on organ. So these are the guys they're saying were the creators of reggae. And the success of The Harder They Come, Jimmy Cliff's classic film in 1971, Paul Simon from America went out to Jamaica to catch some of the vibes, and he came up with a classic hit, Mother and Child Reunion, in 1971, going into 1972. And Hux Brown actually played the guitar riff on that song, on that classic song. If you listen to that song at the start, there's a distinctive guitar riff. That's Hux Brown and guitar with Mother and Child Reunion, Paul Simon. He also played on The Harder They Come as well, the classic number from Jimmy Cliff. Hux Brown played on that song. He played on the Jamaicans' classic festival song winner from 1967, Baba Boom Time, at Drew Creed's Treasure Isle studio. He also played on that classic number as well. As I said before, he played on Monkey Man, the Maytals. He played on Pressure Drop, the Maytals, and so many other classic numbers. Bangarang, one of the very first reggae songs produced by Bunny Lee, Stranger and Gladdy as well. So this man has been around, and he's been so groundbreaking. He began touring with Toots and the Maytals from as far back as the mid-1970s, and he really stopped the touring in around the early 2000s. So, you know, he was touring for a very long time with Toots and the Maytals, and then he stopped going on the road in the early 2000s, but he really contributed to a lot of recordings, even some of the more modern recordings, which a lot of producers would go back into the studio to recreate. Hux Brown was there playing his guitar and some of those absolute classic jams from as far back as, when I say far back, from as far back as the 2000s to this present time until his death. Because I was hearing that, I heard that he'd been playing on some numbers up until he died. You know, because when he died, he was all right. Then that day when he went out to get some items, he just fell, and nobody knows what caused it. But I suspect he died of a heart attack, or it could have been COVID-19 forced or influenced. But then somehow I think it was a heart attack at 75 years of age. You've got to look at his age. He's been pretty healthy up until then, never had any major serious health issues or health concerns. It's such a shame that we lost him abruptly as well, in a year where we're losing a lot of the icons. So we say to Hux Brown and family, he left behind only one daughter, I believe, I heard, and 2 grandchildren, and of course his wife of 42 years, Bobby. So we say rest up strong to the great Hux Brown, one of the creators of reggae in 1968, and of course a great contributor to the rocksteady sound. And talking of rocksteady, he actually played an Out Analysis epochal classic number, Girl I've Got a Date. Critics say that was the very first rocksteady song, along with Hopton Lewis's Take It Easy. But some will say that Alton Ellis's Girl I've Got a Date was the very first rocksteady song, because that, if you listen to that song, it's got elements. For those of you who know, that song's got elements of ska and elements of rocksteady. So I like to call those songs, those late ska, early rocksteady numbers, I like to call those numbers proto rocksteady. And Hux Brown played the guitar in that with the Supersonics, because he was part of the Supersonics band, as I mentioned before, one of the offshoots from the Scatterlights. And the other offshoot at Studio One, the Soul Brothers, he was part of that band as well. So he's got a massive claim to saying that he was the creator of rocksteady and reggae as well. So that's a great feat for one man to achieve, a great feat. Been around so many bands, been played in so many legendary numbers, and the chances are many of those classic numbers from the late 60s, or from the mid to late 60s and the early 70s, Hux Brown, there's a chance the great guitarist Hux Brown would have played on those numbers. You know, I mentioned some classics before, those hits I mentioned from Jimmy Cliff, The Harder They Come, Pressure Drop, Monkey Man, Toots and the Maytals, Baba Boom, the Jamaicans, Bangarang, Stranger and Gladdy, Mother and Child Reunion, Paul Simon. Even though he's not really renowned as a reggae artist, he's a rock artist. But The Harder They Come went around the world, and then Paul Simon Silver, and he wanted to catch some of the vibes, and so he went out to Jamaica in 1971 and recorded it at Dynamic Studio, which is Byron Lee's studio, of course. And Hux Brown was on the session playing his guitar. That's part of that song. You hear the Hux Brown guitar riff. According to Jackie Jackson, the great bass player, who's part of Hux Brown's team, really, when they were, played together with the Supersonics, and also played together at Beverly's, because he also worked at Beverly's with Leslie Kong's Beverly All Stars as well. And that was the group, or the band he was with, which back the made tools Monkey Man and Pressure Drop. According to Jackie Jackson, another creator of reggae and another creator of rocksteady, of the rocksteady sound, with his marvelous bass lines and bass playing. He said that Hux Brown was really majestic with the guitar in his hand. He said he played some of the notes he played. It was describable. He said he had a way about him with he gave a certain description, which has kind of gone out of my head right now, to describe one or two of Hux Brown's guitar chords and guitar notes. He said that for an example, for want of a better term, he said he played the GGs on a particular song. And how did he play the GGs? I would never know. In inverted commas, my interpretation of what he was saying, if you see what I mean. I can't quite remember the word Jackie Jackson used to describe one of the chords that Hux Brown played on one of those songs in those days. But according to the great Jackie Jackson, he said, I don't know how he played those GGs on this particular song or that particular song. So in other words, he laid his own identity in certain songs and put his own stamp of approval on certain songs, and only the great Hux Brown could do that. With Lynn Tate, of course, behind him as well. Some say Lynn Tate was number one, some say Hux Brown was number one. It's vice versa. It depends on your taste. But they were both great guitarists and all great musicians, and amongst the greatest musicians of all time in Jamaican and reggae music. And I want to say thank you so much to you, Hux Brown and Westwell. We'll say bless up to, of course, your family, and Debbie, Bobby, of course, Riddle, and all the great guys who you played with. Some of them have passed away as well. Some are still around. The great Jackie Jackson is still around. And here I am, just paying tribute to the great Linford Hux Brown, who sadly passed and left us on the 18th of June of this wretched year that is 2020. So brothers and sisters, thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Peace out. One love, guidance.